Guys, it's tier list time. We now have a tier list created for these are, fuck, what were we doing again? Tier 0 decks. Hey guys, this is the tier list for what are the best tier 0 decks ever. We have every single tier 0 deck on here. We are gonna rate them next to each other. First of all, let's go into tier limits. We're gonna put that in S tier. This is how we're gonna base everything off of. Yeah, everything is based off of tier limits. Tier limits allows you to go full combo on your opponent's turn. Can any of these do this? I think each of these at least need to have their turn before they play their game. And also, it can out floodgates on its own. That's pretty good. Okay, now let's go through the list. Next, we have Dragon Rulers. How do Dragon Rulers compare to tier limits? Oh, it's kind of hard to see because the model is in the way. Whatever. Let's see, Dragon Rulers, compared to tier limits, full power Dragon Rulers at its time. I think what's hard about this is that these decks are tier 0 within their time frame. So if we compare them to each other based on like their full power versus everybody else's full power, it's kind of difficult because tier just has access to better staples than Dragon Ruler does. If we think like, what if we had a Dragon Ruler deck with modern support? Like full power Dragon Ruler with all of the modern cards. Would it be able to compete with tier? And the answer is no, because it can't play in your opponent's turn. You still have to wait for your turn. I don't know, Dragon Link might be able to pull off something amazing with this. I'm not 100% confident though, but like remembering, if we take like Dark Matter Dragon into account as well. Dark Matter Dragon's pretty easy to go into, and it gets 3 of them in the grave. Shufflers murder the rulers? Counterpoint, rulers could also play the shufflers. Shufflers also ruin tier limits. I don't know. I think they would probably do well. I'm gonna put them in A tier. Full power Dragon Rollers, you know, as a core is pretty good. And if you just add them with like the Ishizu Shufflers, yeah, they have Bestials too. Didn't they super draw a ton of cards for rulers? That's true. They can also play Super Rejuvenation. It actually gives them better cards than it did back in the day. Because Super Rejuvenation does something that Spellbook Judgment doesn't, in that it draws generic cards, which means you can draw into hand traps. So if you refill your hand during your end phase, you can refill with hand traps potentially and like stop your opponent's plays, which is pretty good. Bestials are hand traps too. Yeah. Honestly, I think this is probably A. They're not S tier because they still can't play it in your opponent's turn, but like on their turn, oh boy. Oh gosh darn it. They go crazy. Next up, we have Chaos Emperor Dragon. Uneroded, and if we give it a quick effect to mimic its priority, I think it would still be redunculous. If we take it, obviously back then, using their staples and their cards, they had like Pot of Greed back then though. They didn't have any good hand traps. I'm trying to think, should we compare them based on how they were back then or how they would work with modern support? And I think with modern support, old school Chaos Emperor Dragon would still be a ridiculous card. I'll put it in A tier. Yeah. Like, with modern support, old school Chaos Emperor Dragon would still be really good. Wouldn't have to go second. No, you can go first with it. This would be an amazing going first card. Yeah, I think it's best to do with modern support. Yeah, because if we just compare them all and based on like how they were at the time, the list is too predictable. Because it's like, it's just, you know, based on the year that they came out. Next up, we have Dark Arm Dragon. Thankfully, we do have this card at full power. So we know how it works. And it doesn't. We would have put it at D tier. Dark Arm Dragon, more like lost to the power creep of time dragon. Dad, more like child dragon, teenager. Full power in today's game is weak for dad. Yep. The dad decks are the only ones that don't really hold up to time. Because dad is completely unlimited in the modern game, and nobody plays it. So if like there was a strategy that could play it, they would, but they don't because it doesn't benefit them. Next, we have Necroz at full power, including the Jin Lock with Lavalval Chain and modern support. This one's kind of hard. If they have the Jin Lock, they can get that out super easily. But it's not as good as a full-on hand rip like Chaos Emperor Dragon, and it's not as good as like Dragon Rulers with Bestials and hand traps and Super Rejuvenation. Yeah, this one's kind of hard. So Moki would be S tier? Shut up. Including Jin? Yeah, because the Jin Lock is still very good. And it's very easy to get off. So like, you just bring out the Jin Lock, your opponent can't use special summon monsters. The fact they can't special summon, they can't beat over 2200 attack. It's just like a very easy to bring out towers, but it's not, I mean, I don't want to say it's very easy because you do have to do some investment to get it out. Like bringing a level chain is committing 2 level 4s to the board and then you go into your plays. But the problem is that full power Necroz is pretty consistent and modern ritual cards are even better than they were before. Tier can't really out Jin without non-engines. B is fair. I think B is good because like, I don't think it has the explosive power of just a pure pre-erotic Chaos Emperor Dragon or like modern dragon rulers with like Bestials and stuff. But I think the Jinlock is still good, but I don't know if it would be like that good, you know? It's just one Floodgate. Flu also was able to play a Floodgate pretty easily. And that did help them a lot. Honestly, Flu was really good, but even then, even when Flu still had its Floodgate, it still couldn't beat Tier. And it wasn't Tier 0. I think Flu probably got its Floodgate out even easier. Drytron with full power Necroz would be a real nightmare. Would they even use Necroz though? I'm not 100% sure if Drytron would even like be a good engine for Necroz. Flu can bring out the Floodgate every turn? Yeah. The thing is, yeah, because we have a case study of a deck that could bring out an easy Floodgate and also protect it. And it was running around with full power Tier, and it did compete, but it didn't like make Tier not Tier 0. We'll just put Necroz in B tier for now. Okay, full power PePe with modern support. Basically, as long as they unban Perform Power Plush Fire, then it's basically at full power since they put out so many other cards. I mean, Monkey Board's still only at 1. I think full power PePe is just above Dad in power. Because while Plush Fire can special summon from the deck multiple times if it's destroyed, Tier Laments also do that, just from the extra deck. Tier Laments special summon even more, even easier during your opponent's turn. And Plush Fire, you have to dedicate so many resources to both searching it out and then destroying it multiple times and then bringing it back. It's like, sure, you know, Plush Fire can summon a whole bunch of cards from the deck, but you have to dedicate resources in order to start that up, whereas Tier can get out more cards for less effort and during your opponent's turn. What's the difference in Master Rule 3 and 5? They can use the effects immediately. PP plus new Super Heavy Samurais can be somewhat good. Do they work together though? I know the new Super Heavy Samurais are pretty good, but do they actually work with Plush Fire? We're assuming Master Rule 3 for Plush Fire? Oh, because of the pendulum? I wasn't even considering that because it doesn't really like ham-bone them that much. All right, being able to bring out every pendulum from your extra deck as soon as you fill it up. That does change the power of pendulums a bit. I guess we would have to consider Master Rule 3 pendulums plus modern support, which is just like kind of a stretch. Because we're basically thinking of it now, like what if these cards were unbanned today or uneroded? How would they see play compared to other decks? And for Plush Fire to have a best case scenario, we have to change the rules of the game. So I think that's going a little bit too far. We'd still have to keep Master Rule 4 revisions. I think C is fine for this. It's hard to envision. Yeah, this one's so hard to envision because like nobody plays Pendulums, and Pendulums is such a combo heavy deck that I don't know any combos where they could take advantage of it, but I could imagine a card that's not once per turn which summons from the deck, which can proc when it's destroyed in the Pendulum zone, is still pretty good. Especially since Monkey Board does see competitive play. And Super Heavy Samurais exists, yeah, which is a pendulum deck that sees really good competitive play through the fact they got their Link Monster banned because they were a 1-card combo. So I'm just gonna put NC here. Monkey Board is a criminal. Monkey Board is a 1-card rank level 8 synchro summon, which is hilarious. Next up, we have Spellbook of Judgment. If this card ever got unbanned, oh my goodness gracious, going +7 during the end phase with cards that you can't use during your opponent's turn? Who would have thought that wouldn't be good in the modern game? This is aged as finely as Dark Arm Dragon. Damn dear. I did see someone use this deck in Master Duel, and they did beat me with it. And it was kind of impressive, but it was like basically a Sky Striker deck that also used Spellbook cards unnecessarily. And they did get into Jiaojin, and they were able to protect Jiaojin with their, no, they couldn't use the Sky Striker cards, so like, it was actually a worse version. But they did bring out Jiaojin, protected for a turn, and then went into Sky Strikers to actually win the game. Spellbooks are just kind of like worse Sky Strikers, and Sky Strikers aren't even really meta. What we need is a new Spellbook, a new Sky Striker deck that combines the two, the Spell Strikers. Next up, we have Full Power Spright. Did we ever have Full Power Spright in the TCG? I feel like it was nerfed before it came out. S or A? Full Power Spright was tier 0 over in the OCG. It was an absolute menace. When Spright came out, everybody was talking about, oh my god, I can't wait for Sprites to come out in the TCG because it's gonna ruin or like, I don't want Sprites to come out because it's gonna ruin everything. In Master Duel? No, in the TCG. In OCG. In the OCG, it was an absolute tier 0, like when they first came out. And then people figured out like, oh, these tier limits that nobody's playing, they're actually pretty good. These tier limits, they fusion summon during your opponent's turn. We should probably try these out. Totally awesome. Yeah, I don't think TCG ever had full power Spright, because full power Spright had totally awesome. So like what they would do is they'd bring out totally awesome, which has the effect where if your opponent activates any card or effect, you can tribute an Aqua monster in order to destroy the card, negate it, and then take control of it. Toad isn't banned in... It never was? Wait, TCG had full power Spright? Are you kidding me? TCG hit Rodent Toad? Oh, did they really? TCG had full power Spright and it still couldn't compete versus tier elements? Well, I mean, I wouldn't say couldn't compete, it won events. Tier did very good. It just wasn't tier 0 in TCG. So like, here's the combo for Master Duel players. They bring out totally awesome. It has an Omni Negate that also steals the card that it negates. And it's a rank 2 monster, which means you can use it during your opponent's turn to negate their first card and then steal it. Then basically just chain the effect of Spright Elf to bring it back and then do it again. So they get 2 negates that steal your opponent's cards after it negates the effect, thanks to Spright Elf. So it's pretty good, but I mean, modern board breakers kind of get rid of it. Saw clever spear moding a board of 3 toads during Italian nationals or something. Yeah, like modern board breakers can deal with it. So like, you know, it's not the worst thing in the world because, you know, it sounds like, oh my god, you could steal and negate 2 cards. It's like, yeah, but like modern board breakers are really good. And the resiliency of tiers is what really made them to like shine, is because they could survive their boards being broken and just make them again during your opponent's turn. I can't tell you how many times in Master Duel I broke someone's like tier board and they had a stronger one by the end of the turn. So honestly, I'd put Sprites in A tier above all the other ones. I don't think it can really compete with full power tier limits though, because it didn't. Because according to chat, we had full power Spright in the TCG alongside tiers and they were still tier 0. Well, actually, honestly, full power tier limits includes the Ishizu cards. And I think by the time the Ishizu cards came out, Sprites did get a hit, so they weren't at full power. A modern strong deck, but tier is tier. Yeah, it like, I would say Spright is like as strong as modern decks can possibly get before you get into like tier limit category where they can rebuild their board during your opponent's turn. Spright is tier S, just not next to tier. Tier needs to be its own tier. I know, but that's the thing, like, this is the tier list. If we're going to put it in its own tier, what we'd have to do is move these other cards down a peg. Like put this down here, like this. Like this is what we'd have to do if we wanted to like signify just how strong Spright is compared to these other things. Yeah, I think this better shows the power level of Spright. It's better than Dragon Rulers and like whatever combo you could probably do with pre-erotic Chaos Emperor Dragon with modern support. Anyways, next up we have Spirals, which are at full power in Master Duel. However, not at full power because they don't have pre-errata Firewall Dragon. What if we added pre-errata Firewall Dragon to Spirals? I think they would be much better. However, I beat a full power Spiral deck in Master Duel with a Maxi, a Torrential Tribute, and a Solemn Strike. So like, I don't know, man. Like, I was playing a freaking gimmick deck. I don't know. I wouldn't have been able to beat Spright or tier limits with that deck. They had a pretty impressive board. Oh wait, they also had Nightmare Goblin. That's a pretty big one. So like, full power Spright had pre-errata Firewall Dragon, they had Nightmare Goblin, and I don't think they had the Orcus cards. Orcus. Yeah, I don't think they had Orcus yet, because like Nightmare Mermaid existed, but they didn't have Orcus Nightmare as a bridge yet. So they didn't have access to the Orcus engine. Plus it would have locked them out of their anyways, I don't think they would use it. But they did have Nightmare Goblin, which was really good. It gives them an extra normal summon. Is this the TCG tier list or a Master Duel? This is an imaginary one. We're trying to see which would be the best tier 0 decks with modern support. Because if we just ranked them based on which one was the strongest based on their time, it'd be too easy. It'd basically just be like, you know, in the order in which they came out. Okay, I think B tier is pretty good. Spirals, full power Spirals with pre-errata Firewall Dragon and Nightmare Goblin is still pretty solid. But I think Sprite's probably still better. Sprites aren't cool enough. I know there's some people in chat who would heavily disagree with that. I don't know, I'm gonna leave it at B tier. Okay, and then we have Zodiac. Zodiac is widely regarded as one of the most successful archetypes of all time, where it's hit harder on the ban list today than it was back when it first came out in like what, 2017, 2015? I don't remember. So some people are saying it's S tier next to tier limits because of how redunculous they are. With a Rat Pier at 3, a Broad Bull at 3, which again is a search from the deck that's not once per turn, and Rat Pier, which is extra materials on the board, which is not once per turn. And then of course there's Barrage to get all the combos started without using your normal summon. However, they have to wait for their turn to do that, and their boards can be broken, in which case they can't recover until their next turn starts. They basically have the same problem as all modern meta decks, where they're susceptible to board breakers, and they can't rebuild during their opponent's turn. One of the reasons tier is so good is because they're like cockroaches. They just don't die. They can just keep going forever and ever and ever. You need very specific outs to stop a tier player from playing on your turn. So I would say full power Zodiac with modern support would still be absolutely insane, but still not as good as tier limits. Full power Zoo making a 10 plus mat. Oh my god, 10 plus mat, say hello to evenly matched. Oh wait, evenly matched wouldn't, honestly, wrong board breaker. I meant Dark Ruler No More, or like Forbidden Droplet, or a Turtle, yeah. Evenly matched is probably the only board breaker in which it can play through. Yeah, hi 10 material Zeus, here's a Turtle. If you give a Turtle to tier limits, they're just gonna play during your turn anyway. Tier being able to play turn 0 is disgusting. Because tier can play turn 0, that means they're able to keep playing during your opponent's turn. I remember one time I dropped an evenly match on a tier limits player, and they had a better board after the evenly match resolved than before. And I was like, how? How did you do that? That was genius. Every deck in existence is too slow for tier. Yeah, it's really just the fact that they can do their combos during their opponent's turn, which also means they can do them after their board's been broken. So like, even though the boards they set up aren't as impressive as what Spright or Full Power Zodiac, because remember, Full Power Zodiac was a combo deck. They can put out some negates as well. Or like Spirals, which put out a whole bunch of negates. Even though all those decks can put out a bunch of negates and combo off of their first turn, they have to wait for their turn to do that, which tier doesn't. Tier is like playing Yu-Gi-Oh! 2. Yeah. Maybe they didn't have the Havness and Ishizus, then tiers would be comparable to the other peasant decks. Exactly. If tiers didn't have Havness or the Ishizu cards, they would be like these other mere mortal decks that aren't able to compete with this. Okay, chat, how do you like my list? Do you think it's a good list? Do you think there's any changes that could be made to this tier 0 list? I think Spiral is an A? Maybe. I'd be fine with it being A. Dad deserves to be S for that Riz? No. I want you to play a Zoo versus S. You'd make me sad now. Zoo got A over Spirals. You should be happy. Now we debates is better, Zodiacs or Sprites? Full power Zodiac? I'm not sure, honestly. Like Broad Bull and Rat Pier are crazy. They're crazy combo extenders. But are they as crazy as just the mainline engine of Spright, which just has built-in negates? I don't know. Probably not. What about Dark Magicians and Blue Eyes decks? I see those used more than anything. Yeah, but do they take top spots at events? Who would have thought that an entire deck of powerful Link 1 monsters would be super good? It's the biggest surprise in history. Oh my god. You guys have to remember, Zodiac Broad Bull just requires 2 level 4 monsters, which means you could use this instead of Chalkanane for modern Zoo combos. And you could search a card and then go into Broad Bull and attack and then go into Zoos. If Broad Bull was released, it would be such a good mini engine. But honestly, are there any good like Beast Warrior monsters that you could just play in your deck that you'd want to search out? Because it has to be a Beast Warrior that can be summoned, or like normal summoned or something. And Rage Battle Ox? So true.